It was 50 years ago. When you draw one frame, you can eat one ramen, but the rate of the life increase.
But the
inflation
didn't. Yeah, but the price. So now, if you want to eat a ramen, you have at least to do 5 or 6 frames.
Oh my God!
Am I allowed to ask what that might be per frame?
Well, when you're in betweener, you are paid like a.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Trash Taste, the anime podcast where we talk about Japan, food, shitting, and occasionally anime. I was trying to remember what I said last week.
Is that what you said last week?
I think that's what I said last week. I am your host for today, Gant, again, and joining me is, as usual, the boys. And once again, we have a guest as I'm hosting. We have Ken Arto. Do you want to introduce yourself and what you do?
Yes, nice to meet you. My name is Ken Arto. I am a Animator in Japan since 2015. And so I had work on projects like Dragon Ball Super Broly, My Hero Academia, JoJo, a lot of things.
Yes.
And
My favorite. Sorry. I just love JoJo.
and I am actually animator at Studio 4C.
Oh, okay. Wow. Well, we have a quick spread of some of the shows you worked on, not everything.
Wow, you worked on Monsters University.
I like pretty much a Shonen Jump, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this isn't all the shows that Ken's worked on, but you know, these are probably I'd say the most notable ones. I mean, there's obviously more like the recent Jujutsu Kaisen as well.
Yeah.
So,
Episode 16, right?
16 will be this Friday.
Hell yeah.
And recently also Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
You casually dropped that.
That's one hell of a CV. Well, thank you very much for coming on because it's nice to have someone who's actually been working in the industry and is knowledgeable about what it's actually like working in there instead of just having 3 guys sitting in the room, just taking guesses, taking pot shots.
Just take knowledgeable guesses. Sometimes not knowledgeable guesses. Just
I think when we don't have a guest, it's like, don't listen to what we say.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're talking about.
But now we're literally like first-hand source. Right,
Now we can get the answers at the same time as our audience.
Right.
I am curious if there was, perhaps one scene or one show that you would recommend for someone to watch to maybe experience your work the best. What would you point them towards?
Actually, I will maybe say. Actually, I'm working in a movie for Studio 4C. I can say the name because it's not there. On this movie, I put all my guts.
Oh, wow.
And so yes, you have to wait a bit, but
that was the most slick way to promote the new movie. My best work is one that you're gonna have to go see in cinemas.
But Jujutsu Kaisen episode 6. So I think it's a good shot I have done. So this weekend.
I mean, how long have you been working in the industry now?
So we don't count my internship. It will be now 5 years. And so I start as in-betweener. So the
in between frames, right?
Yeah, between frames, clean the in-betweens. And I have done that for 1.5 years. And after I have switched of studio, I went to Yapiko Animation. The previous studio was a Graphinica and Yapiko I made 2.5 years. And after Yapiko, now I'm a Studio 4C.
Studio 4C.
Wow.
Because it's because your background is that you're half Japanese, half French, right? Yeah. So what made you want to start working in the anime industry?
Actually, in France, we have at the first channel in the 90s and a show called Club Dorothée. And actually, Dorothée was a woman who bought a lot of anime. And Dragon Ball, Saint Seiya, Maison Ikoku, Ranma. And so when I was little, I watched those shows, and also I went often to Japan with my mother. And I was used to watch a lot of anime when I was a kid, and I grew with manga also. And so I used to draw those characters when I was little, and so at first I wanted to be a mangaka. But
as does everyone, I think.
Yes.
I think every weeb has had that dream one time in their lives.
Every weeb who draws their first anime character is like, I'm on my way to be on Shonen Jump. Let's go.
Wait, are you telling me, Connor, that you've never had a story or something that you've just fantasized about?
No.
You never fantasized as a kid at all.
Probably, but I probably that was like my thing, right? I'm not sharing it with other people. It's my story. You know what I mean? Why am I sharing it? You know?
You never had a phase where you were like, I guess though, like you started watching anime at like a little bit of like an older stage.
That's
like,
true.
15, 16, I started watching anime.
yeah,
so pretty late, I think.
Yeah.
So I probably didn't get that whimsical phase of.
Yeah, because I mean, how old were you when you like first like really? I guess like while knowing that this is anime.
Oh, I don't remember. I think the shock I had was in '98 when I watched Princess Mononoke.
Oh yeah.
And for this time I didn't know what I'm watching, but it was beautiful, scary and beautiful. And I was just 9.
9. Yeah.
Just 9.
Yeah, just 9. And also when I watched Evangelion, I was just 10 or 11.
What?
Yeah.
How could you understand anything?
Oh,
Hey, same here actually. Same here. I'm glad someone.
I don't know if I was understanding everything, but there is mecha, there's alien. Okay, I have to beat them.
They're the bad guys.
That's all you like understand about Ava when you're like 10, right? It's like
Yeah.
good guys, bad guys.
I mean, I'll be
Fight.
honest. I watched it last year, and that's pretty much my understanding.
Also, the characters was 14 at the story, and I was 11, so
Close enough,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
close enough.
Yeah,
Okay,
true,
I can
true.
pilot it.
It's gonna be me, Mom.
Yeah.
I can be in the Ava.
I actually have a similar story about like Ava, because Ava is the second proper anime that I watched after discovering it was anime. So the first anime I ever watched knowing it was an anime was Naruto. And how I found that was I was on a random gaming forum, and it was back when having anime avatars was actually cool. And I was like, oh, what are these avatars that people have? They look really cool. And I found that one guy had this avatar that was from the show called Naruto, and I'm like, oh, this kind of looks like Dragon Ball Z. Watched Naruto, fucking loved it. Introduced me to anime properly, and then I went on the same gaming forum and I made an anime thread. I was like, guys, this Naruto thing's awesome. Can you guys recommend me something else to watch like Naruto? And some guy, dead ass, goes, you should watch Evangelion. It's totally like Naruto.
Totally.
So I went into Evangelion as like a 11, 12-year-old thinking it was a shonen anime.
Oh my god.
And so for like the first, I'd say half of it could like maybe have like passed as a shonen, because Shinji could have still, Shinji was still doing stuff.
Yeah.
And then the halfway point hit, and then everyone just got sad and depressed. And my 11-year-old mind was just like, why are people like this? This is so stupid. This is so unrealistic. I remember thinking as an 11-year-old, this is the writing of the show is so bad because the adults don't have their shit together. Why is that so? Why don't the adults have their shit together? This is so unrealistic.
I just imagine like 11-year-old guy going up to his mom being like, "Mother, what is depression?" I learned it in this show called Evangelion.
And now I'm just like, oh yeah. So no adults just have their shit together. That's just life.
So you've always been able to speak Japanese since a young age.
Yes, with my mother, and so yes, I learned. I don't know if I can say I learned, but
Like you just know it.
Yeah,
right?
I just know.
I think
With anime, with drama, with movies, and my mother and some of my family.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's a family language.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you have to work, you use another Japanese language, which is Keigo.
Oh God.
And so yes, it's a
And Keigo is like very formal Japanese.
very formal when you have to speak with your senpai, with your boss. It's different. You have to put your interlocutor up and you down.
Basically, it's the bane of every like person trying to learn Japanese, right? Like that. It's like it's smooth sailing until you hit Keigo, and then everyone's like,
Smooth sailing until you hit Keigo.
Oh no, trust me.
Fuck off.
Oh, if you think it's hard now, wait till you hit Keigo.
I've just given up on the thought of ever learning Keigo. I'm like, Keigo, I'm okay.
Because I thought that as well, because I kind of was the same thing, right? Like, I don't speak Keigo to my parents, right? I don't think any kid does. So I had to learn Keigo on the job when I first like started at part-time jobs in Japan. And I was like, I thought I knew Japanese until I had to start using Keigo. It just threw every conception about Japanese out the window.
Is there like any comparison that's even close to English with Keigo?
It's like, oh man, I don't know. What is there a comparison?
Would it be like trying to speak like a very old like very posh
English,
kind of version of
Yeah,
English.
it's kind of like it's kind of like going from only learning internet slang to learning Shakespeare.
Yeah.
You know,
I see.
it's like
Yeah.
it's basically another.
So you motherfuckers have to learn to speak in cursive.
yeah, pretty much, yeah.
That's Japanese curse.
We're literally like it's like a Shakespeare play. You know, when the like translation is on the next page, it's basically that.
I saw there was like Japanese cursive.
Is there?
Like, yeah, I saw that someone was writing Japanese in cursive.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe like calligraphy, right?
No, like legit. Like it was like a doctor's note someone had showed me, and it was
Oh
like
no,
in
dude!
cursive.
Like every time I have to go to the doctor's here, I'm just like, I might as well die.
But like,
because I can't read this note.
it's good to
Yeah,
know
it's
that
very-
transcends language that doctors just can't write for shit. Like, just somehow that's
It's just universal, right?
Yeah, and I thought kanji was hard, but you throw in cursive kanji, and I'm like, come on.
It's like level
Say
100
psych. Yeah,
comprehension.
say psych. Like, what a joke.
Actually, when you have some animators, you have some notes of my sample on paper.
Yeah.
I try to read it because what did he? I don't-
It's like
so-
decoding it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have to decoding, but it takes too much time. So I go to my senpai. Sorry, what did you?
What did you?
The fuck
It's
is
just
this?
easier to ask, isn't it? Yeah.
Sorry.
So was it anime that I'm guessing it was anime the reason you started to learn animation and really
At first, I think no, I wanted to be mangaka, but I was not good at school. Not good at school, and you have lessons, but I didn't listen to the lesson. I was drawing manga on my notes, and so I went to another school. Not a high school. High school, you could learn about communication, art craft.
This is in France, right?
Yeah, in France. I was born and raised in France. And at first it was about communication, how to do CM, commercial. And it was not pleasant, but I had to go this way to go to animation schools.
right.
Yeah, so I take the baccalaureate in French, we say, so first degree, I think.
Oh, bachelor.
Bachelor, yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
So you did a bachelor's degree in animation in
Yeah,
university?
Bachelor, and after I went to animation schools.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So how did it transition from then that in France to being in Japan? Because I feel like that's like
Yes,
that's a big leap, right?
And at first, when you are at art in school in France, anime wasn't so it was popular,
Yeah.
but for adults, it's what kind of
child nonsense is
is,
this?
is this? And you should change some style. It's not a good style. Yeah, you have adults who watching you from up and change the style. You're drawing too much manga. Oh, it's not a bad idea, but it's manga.
Yeah.
And so, I was okay. If I draw manga, it's bad things. So I changed my style. But but actually I wanted to draw manga style.
Yeah.
anime
Yeah,
style,
yeah.
So
I feel like in Europe there is the notion of animation is, especially anime, looks for children.
yeah.
Right, 'cause I feel like everyone I spoke to grew up in Europe seems that way, where it's like, oh, after I'm 16, I can't watch this child stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's every art student I know. Like I have a cousin who's an art student and like she loves anime, but as soon as she started art school, you were just like it was looked down upon to really draw an anime art style. So I don't know if it's still the same.
Weebs getting bullied everywhere. They
But,
go.
exactly right, because like you draw anime and your art teacher would just be like, no, please draw real art,
Yeah,
please.
because some art professor of art school, you draw manga, okay. I will give you a bad note, bad score.
Right.
Yeah.
You
And
have to change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or you have drawn some American comics, good. So yes, not some equals by some professor, so teacher. So it was kind of hard the first time because you're a bit lost. Okay, I have to change my style. But when you met other people who like what you like too, you have a better communication,
Right.
and I want to do this. I want to draw anime style.
I want to be a weeb.
I want to follow my dreams.
And and I found that there is an animation school in France, and so I attempt to. I went to animation school, but you learn Disney way. in
Right.
not the Japanese way
Right.
of because Japanese way is very particular, or you use economy of the frame,
Okay.
but very smart. It's a smart way to use Japanese animation. In Disney, you have a lot of budget, so you can put a lot of frames.
right.
Okay.
Throw money at the problem.
Yeah.
So basically, Disney is just more drawings, where the Japanese animation technique is more, let's say,
Optimized.
optimized. Yeah, I was looking for the right
Actually,
word.
because of also the Japanese animation industry, you have to do 1 episode per week. So
Right.
and, maybe in America they finished and they delivered the episode to the channel, but in Japan, when you broadcast the show, it's not finished.
Yeah.
You're trying to
Yeah, because I've noticed that a lot of Blu-ray releases have like retouches, like JoJo.
Yes,
I remember
yes.
part 4. There's some famous examples, right, of the side by side where you can like. There's a website I think where you can sweep the frame
Oh, really?
across, and like some of the character designs are totally changed in the Blu-ray.
That's called DVD retakes. And actually, when you show the show on TV,
Yeah.
and so for people who want to buy the DVD, there is a plus, and the plus of the bonus is a better drawings, animation redone,
More polished.
So
Yeah, more
is it like the original drawing is thrown out and they just remake it, or do they improve the original drawing?
they improve, or sometimes they redo it.
Oh wow!
Oh, wow.
So it's
It's
quite
So
intense.
for this cat, we cannot do 100% what we wanted.
Right.
So let's redo it.
Right.
Or this one, or they just mess up on the eyes, so let's redraw the eyes.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I did find that funny actually, because like, yeah, I noticed that like, because you know, I did when I did voice work for Pop Team Epic, I did it on episode 9, and when I got the script for it, episode 1 had already aired, so I was like, is this gonna be out in time? Because I always thought, because I always thought it worked like how in American TV shows, where it's like the entire season is already
Gets done.
And
Yeah.
then
It's done,
sent
and
off,
then
right.
they start releasing
Yeah.
it. But in Japan, they're just like, nope, we got to do it now. Like
Yeah,
it's all
yeah.
real time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends, because when the first episode is broadcast, actually, so the studio might have done already 10 episodes.
Right.
Maybe if the schedule was good,
Right.
or if they have done just a 4 episode, it will be hard.
Yeah. I love how 10 episodes is considered a good schedule.
yeah, exactly. Have you ever been working up to the deadline where you've been working on the show and
Yes.
it's been airing
Like
at that
the
point?
next day or something.
Yeah.
Well, it was for Hiroaka.
Oh my god.
It was, I think, season 3.
Yeah.
I was doing my Genga. So yeah, Genga is the second step of the key animation. And
What does Genga involve? Sorry.
okay. So
I'm totally
Okay.
new. Like,
Connor knows nothing about
So-
animation, so we're gonna break it down.
for now, I will explain the process of the fabrication of Genga.
Okay.
So you have the key animator, me, and I receive an offer of work by Twitter or by mail.
By Twitter.
Sometimes about
Wow.
Twitter, because a lot of assistant production are looking for animators on Twitter, and
Wow.
so for Japan, most of the Japanese animators, they use Twitter as a portfolio or contact.
Right. Tons of
yeah.
like, DM. Right.
Yeah,
Okay. That makes
exactly.
sense.
And hi, I'm from this studio. I have this project. The schedule is that. Do you want to work on it? So I look my schedule. If it's okay, if it's good match, yeah, sure. Okay, so let's put a date for do the meetings. So okay, this date. So I go to the studio, meet the director episode and assistant production who I send mails, and we are doing the meeting for the sequence I have choose. At first, they send me a storyboard. A storyboard is a little technical comic about.
It's like a rough
Yes.
outline of how the scene
yes,
will go.
yes,
Right.
with the camera works, technical notes,
Right.
and I choose my sequence. A sequence can be just like 3 cuts, 30 cuts, 19 cuts.
So what's a cut?
A
Sorry.
cut is one
Like
scene.
one scene, like one continuous scene.
Oh,
like
I see.
Like
Yeah.
the
So-
camera changes or the scene changes.
Yeah, so you know when in live action when you
the
film
camera
something and
cuts.
then the camera
Yeah.
cuts.
Right,
Obviously
same
in animation, you don't have an entire scene that you cut out of. That's pre-planned.
Right. That makes sense. Okay.
And so one scene can be 1 second or 10 seconds, 30 seconds. It depends.
Right.
And if there is a lot of seconds, it's more works.
Right. Naturally.
And so, take an example. Okay, I will choose this sequence. It's 10 cuts. And so I go to the meeting. So meeting with the director, and he going to explain me how he see, how he want those 10 cuts make.
Okay.
Right.
And he expect me, for this cut, I would like a rough animation, more action, like from West Coast, we said Sakuga.
Sakuga.
Sakuga is like the Western slang word for like good animation.
So the word Sakuga in Western world is completely different to what Sakuga in Japanese actually is.
Yeah.
So in the anime community, we refer to Sakuga as good animation, right?
Yeah.
Like lots of frames, lots of flashy animation. But in Japanese, Sakuga just means frames.
Frames.
Okay.
If you look at the kanji, Saku, make, ga, picture.
Make picture.
Make a picture.
Wow.
So it's kind of become like a buzzword here.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Like if you say anime in Japan, anime
just
is
means like all
animation.
Yeah.
But if you say anime in West, it means
only Japanese anime.
It's only Japanese anime.
So in Japan, Monsters Inc. is technically an anime.
Yes, exactly.
Mikey Dowson, the anime opening. Hello.
My anime list. Hello. Wait,
So you had like 10 cuts of
10
My
cuts.
Hero Academia to do.
Yeah, and
All different types of animation.
different types of animation. Sometimes just talkings,
Yeah.
little actings, and sometimes some action cuts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do the meeting with the director. So it takes like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I have to do the first step. It's the layout.
Yeah.
So I'm going to explain what is
Yes,
the
please.
layout.
Okay.
You're telling me words and I have no idea. Tell me what the layout is.
Layout is so you have the storyboard.
Uh-huh.
I see the one scene, and I have to draw the background with the character on it, and all the movement of the character, just rough.
Very rough. Okay.
Very rough. And also, if there is a camera works, I have to add it.
Right.
And all put the timing of this cut.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's basically like it's basically like the storyboard, but just a bit more
Refined.
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 So
With you see the character, what movement he will do. Just
Oh,
rough.
like when you see
Yeah.
like those outline sketches.
Yeah,
onto
like
the-
that,
I see
like
them
that.
sometimes,
Yeah,
like that. And but you don't need to push it the most. So you have to watch the drawings of. You have to know a bit of what the character is.
Like the armor or
the
clothes,
armor,
right.
yeah, exactly. And when you finish that, you send it back to the director. The director will check it, add some correction, or the arm is too low, more higher. The expression not sad, more angry.
yeah.
And after those correction by the director, it will go to the Sakkan. So Sakuga Kantoku, it means the animation director.
Okay.
Okay.
And the animation director will put your drawings more in model. So if you see good drawing, it's because the Sakkan have put all his gut on it. Because the Sakkan, in one episode there is at least one or two, and here they have to check the 150 cuts.
Oh wow.
So they basically make sure that the characters kind of look the same and consistent
Each
throughout.
cut. In fact, the animators just draw a rough diamond, and if this diamond is good quality, after the second can polish it.
Right.
Right.
So like how many, like say for like My Hero Academia, like an episode of My Hero Academia, like how many different animators would be working on like one episode, for instance, like individual animators?
I think
like
maybe
on average.
on average at least 10 animators would be good. If you can see on the credits
Right.
how many animators Genga in the part Genga.
Right.
How many is animators? Sometimes you have 15 animators, or sometimes you have what is called one-man army. Just
one guy doing
one
the entire
guy who have
episode.
the
Really?
Wow.
Have you ever done that?
Oh no. Actually, I'm just a baby, man. I'm just a baby animator.
I was gonna say like,
How
oh
much
my
of a
God.
machine do you have to be to do the saga of an entire 24-minute episode?
Yeah, and those guys are called monsters,
Oh,
man.
their hands
Yeah.
just like red, like just destroyed.
I don't
Their
know.
wrists are just like this thick.
They're very, very fast. And like you see, this is a Japanese animation when you see a veteran animator who show
Couldn't
you.
imagine one guy doing it all.
It's like that scene from Hunter x Hunter where the guy returns from like being up in the mountains for like 10 years or something. Netero, when Netero just returns and it just shows everyone how it's done and everyone becomes his disciple.
Something would take me like 1 day, you can do it in 1 hour.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Yeah.
Some people have too much talent.
Too much talent.
It ain't right. It ain't
because
right.
he have also me. I'm 31.
Yeah.
Right.
And the guy, my senpai, is like 31 years of experience in animation.
Right. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's why I jumped a baby.
So like, so 5 years in the anime industry is like nothing.
It's nothing.
Wow. Oh my god. we'll have you back on in 20 years.
Yes,
You're the senpai.
It's like, yes, I can do a cut in an hour now. What of it?
So, sorry, going back earlier as well, even way earlier in the conversation, I guess you said you learned in France, and I am curious because we jumped back into talking about anime. How did you then make the leap to when you're done with art school in France to go to Japan?
Because it was an animation school, we have to do internship. And so I asked to my school it was possible to go to Japan to do my internship. They said, yes, if you find the studio by yourself.
Yeah,
right.
Okay. And so my first internship was 10 years ago. In 2011. And so I have sent a lot of mails.
Yeah.
20, 25.
Bringing out the Keigo.
And it's a good mail. My mother helped me to Keigo.
I've been there.
So for the proper forms and my portfolio. And so I had just 5 answers and 4 no and 1 yes.
Oh.
And
that's all you need, isn't it?
Yeah.
So at least they're courteous enough to reply with a no, because most job interviews or most job places I apply to, if a no is just not hearing back.
Yeah, and I was so happy, but in March you had the earthquake. And so the studio asked me, "Do you really want to come to Japan?" I didn't know what future will be for me, and for me it was a unique chance. So I said, definitely. And the studio was a telecom animation film.
Okay.
They have made Castle of Cagliostro.
Yeah.
The first movie of Miyazaki Hayao.
I think most recently, didn't they make Tower of God?
Yes.
Yes. I think that's the most recent one I remember them making.
This episode is sponsored by ExpressVPN.
You know what I like doing, gentlemen?
What?
Shitting. Especially shitting privately.
Damn, that's a controversial take.
I know. Now imagine if you just couldn't shit privately and your door was always open. Well, that's what it's like not using ExpressVPN.
I actually like shitting with the door open. I don't. It's not claustrophobic.
I didn't need to know.
It's claustrophobic. Did you know that your internet service provider, like Comcast or Verizon, knows every single website you visit?
Now that's not cool.
And what's worse is that they can sell this information to ad companies and tech giants who will use your data to target you.
Well, luckily, ExpressVPN can put a stop to that. It creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet so that your online activity can't be seen by anyone.
Wow.
I use ExpressVPN on all my devices. It works on everything.
What?
Phones, laptops, even routers. Yes, I said routers because that's how I was taught to say it. Is it router or router?
I say router.
I say router.
I'm routers. Well, I just said
Router gang, rise up.
Router gang! Woo! So everyone who shares your Wi-Fi can still be protected even if they don't have ExpressVPN.
I've put it on my bidet.
Did you?
No. But I'd like to if I could. And the best part is, using ExpressVPN is as easy as closing the bathroom door, which I don't do. You just fire up the app, click the button, and you're protected.
ExpressVPN is the world's #1 rated VPN by CNET, Wired, The Verge, and countless others.
So if you like me and believe your online activity is your business, I see what they did there. They're referring to shitting. Secure yourself by visiting expressvpn.com/trashtaste today. That's expressvpn.com/trashtaste.
And you can get an extra 3 months for free.
That's expressvpn.com/trashtaste. Links down in the description below. Thank you for the sponsor. Back to the video.
So what did you have to do at your internship? What was that like?
So at first, I have some 2 weeks of experience of how to do a walk, how a characters do a rotation of the head. So exercise, it will be exercise on paper.
Okay.
And so at first I know that. But like I said, I know the Western
The Disney way.
Disney way. I didn't know the Japanese way with less frame, with just some key pose, and after you do the in-betweens. But I had the key poses, and I have to clean up these key poses and do the in-betweens frames.
So the in-between frames are, I assume, as they say, right, like in the name, right?
Do you want to explain keyframes and in-betweens the corner?
So let's this is 1, 2.
Right.
For a punch, 1,
Right.
2.
Right.
But for there needs some in-betweens to maybe just the key pose, in-betweens,
Right.
in-betweens, key pose.
And those are the in-betweens are normally not as polished as the...
So the in-betweens, it's you have to take the 2 key pose and to
layer them,
and you do the in-betweens and like that.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
It's basically like the plugin in After Effects that people put over the anime to make it 60 FPS, but someone's actually doing that themselves.
Right.
It's the best way I can describe it.
In Japan, we are 24 FPS.
Yeah,
24
FPS,
yeah.
And that's the in-between frames are normally given to like interns and...
Yes, at first, when you start as a dogaman in Japan, you say. So doga is moving, it's mean moving pictures, but it's mean in between in Japan. And so I have done this for 2 weeks, and after those 2 weeks, they put me on production.
Oh, wow.
And it was
2 weeks into your internship.
Wow.
2 weeks for exercise, and the last 2 months and a half, it was on the production of Lupin.
Oh my god!
I thought you'd be getting coffee or something from the animators. 2 weeks in working on Lupin.
They really put you to work.
So it was two weeks of exercise, and after 2 months and a half on Lupin, it was a television special, so a TV show.
Yeah.
And yes, it was my first experience, and so I met a lot of famous animators, a lot of veterans, and the staff was very nice to me. It was at Mitaka at this moment at Telecom. Now they are at Nakano. And yes, the staff was very nice. They was wondering, why do you come to Japan? And yeah, I wanted to go abroad. Boy, I want to work in Japan.
Yeah, you want to be an animator for anime. Man, I feel bad for our intern now. Like, we're sorry, Ashley. Like, hearing the story, you know.
But and I had met a French senpai who named Christophe Ferreira, and
That's the most French name I've ever heard.
very French name. And he said me that take a time and work very late. And people, when you work very late, there are less animators, but the boss is not here, and so animators are more. They are more free to speak to you.
Right. More socializing going on.
Yeah,
when
more
you stay
socializing
right
at
there.
night. You work hard very night, late. What are you doing?
I feel like that must be a bonding experience, right?
Yes.
Because you're all staying up late together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When most of my good animators friends was because yes, we work very at the 8 o'clock of the morning because we work hard, we didn't slept, and you are my brother in arm.
Like, my man.
Damn. So you literally just sent an email to a company, and then you flew to Japan, and wow.
And then he worked on fucking Loop.
And then you literally within a month, so what time frame was it from you sending that email to the company to you being in Japan and working on Lupin the Third?
Yeah. So I sent the mail in January. They said okay, and so I went in June.
Wow.
And,
6 months.
Like
Six months.
That's crazy.
But yes, but I was pretty lucky because the director said yes.
Yeah.
And now the director is no more working at Telecom Animation Film because he's now in Thai. And yes, so it was cool. And so this was my first experience in the Japanese animation industry. It was 10 years ago. And so I went to another animation school. And to this animation school, I had to have the occasion to do a summer school at Gobelin, l'école de l'image. It's a French famous school for animation. And I have met Thomas Romain. He's very famous because he's maybe the pop of the French animators in Japan.
Oh wow!
Okay.
And also because he's very famous, he redrew his kids' drawings.
Oh wow!
Oh, I might have.
That sounds familiar.
That sounds
Yes.
very familiar.
Yes, yeah.
That sounds like it blew up on the
Yes.
Reddit
Yeah.
or something, right?
Yes, kids drew and he picked the picture of his kid and redraw it as a professional way.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar. Yeah.
And I met him at this summer school, and I talked a bit with him, and he gave me his
Business
card,
card, yeah.
business card, and connection is very important.
Yeah.
Like I said, this summer school, I could do it because, in fact, the director of Telecom Animation School
Recommended.
was doing a summer school at Gobelin, but he needed a translator,
Oh.
and he called me because
Okay,
you're in France, you can help me.
Right.
And that's why the first way to find a contact is very difficult. But when you have one, he can introduce you to someone
The
else.
door
Yeah.
opens.
Yeah.
That's what it is with the anime industry, is that like it's only so big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you know one person,
Yeah.
it's just
The,
kind
the,
of
the hard
spreads.
the hard part is getting in.
Yeah.
But everyone I've met who's working in the anime industry, especially if they're a foreigner, they've just had like that one lucky pull of like
Yeah.
just like that one lucky in, and
But-
once they've got that in,
As you are animators, it's the first time it's difficult to entry, but after it's to stay also. I will explain later. But
Yeah.
I sent a mail to Thomas Romain, and Thomas Romain was working at this time at Satellite.
Okay.
okay.
So they are very famous for the series Macross.
Yeah.
And
As an animation studio, I assume.
Yeah, they
like
they made
old
Log Horizon as well, one of the seasons.
Season 2, I believe they did. Yeah, the later ones.
And so I could manage to do a 4 months internship at Satellite.
Wow.
But it was very different of telecom. So it was a bit more colder, a bit more rush. Hurry up. And telecom, the animators were coming at 10 and leaving at night like at 10 also. But at Satellite, everybody was coming in the afternoon, 2 or 4, and was working at 6 a.m.
Oh my
God.
Jesus.
Definitely a lot more like hardcore. I guess like what I want to ask is like kind of going back to the loop in the third thing. Like I assume you like watched the TV show when like after it came out, right?
Yeah.
Like I've always wanted to know, like as an animator, like how does it feel to see something that you drew be animated on TV? Because like I can't imagine what that's like, right?
So sometimes oh shit, I screw up. It's not good. And no, it's fine. I managed to do something good, but when some few weeks passed, look at it again. You're not very satisfied.
That's how you know you've grown, right?
Grown
You
or
hate everything you've made.
Yeah.
yes, but the way of to grow our drawings is very difficult because it's not like that. It's like stairs.
Right.
And sometimes there is a long flat moment and you don't progress.
Yeah.
And you can. It's you fight against you, to improve, and sometimes you can depress. Sometimes,
Right.
I have
But I'm sure there's been moments where there was like a cut that was really good, and you're just like, yeah, I did that.
there is this moment, and when you have this moment, it's the moment of, oh man, animation is cool.
I think it's the same for us where we make like a YouTube video. Sometimes we just feel like we've stagnated in content, and sometimes
How do I beat this?
sometimes we put out that one banger video and like, this is why I do YouTube, and then you hate your job for the rest of the time.
And also when you can talk animation with your senpai or your coworkers, is very good, and they share the same likes.
Right.
The way of thinking of animation is the same as me. yeah, it's cool. And so talking about animation with your senpai, and you learn a lot of history of other famous show. At this point, when they done this episode, there was broken.
Right.
But they managed to succeed it.
I gotta ask, what's the first show where you got that you were given that you were like really, really excited for? Like I'm like when you realize, oh, I'm working on this show. Really, this show was. What was the first time?
Dragon Ball Super Boy.
Dragon Ball. Oh, of course. I bet it was.
When I was little, I was rocking Dragon Ball. Of Goku, I was imitating King Kamehameha.
I think, yeah.
And so I had Dragon Ball. I had the chance to work on it because my senpai, I was at Yapiko at this moment, and I had started as key animator.
Wow.
And so we skip a lot of years of Graphinica where I was in betweener.
Right.
So when I was at Yapiko, my senpai wanted to work on Dragon Ball Super, the series. But so we had another senpai who had worked on the Resurrection of F and previous to movie of Dragon Ball Super.
Oh, okay, Resurrection.
And his name is Shimizu. Oh, fuck, I forgot.
Shimizu-san.
Shimizu-san. And Hiroshi Shimizu. He's the character designer of Megalobox.
Oh,
wow.
Shit,
Yeah.
okay.
And he introduced us to Toei. Hey, those French people want to work on Dragon Ball. And so Toei met us, and okay, so we have this episode. You have Vegeta and Goku who had to fight these. I don't remember the name of the man. He was white.
So someone's just like, these guys want to work on Dragon Ball, and Toei's literally like, yeah, sure.
But we had a
Smooth
recommendation.
talk them. Yeah.
Our senpai. Okay, so at first let's do the series, and if the series was good, okay, maybe you can work
do more,
on,
right?
on the movie because the movie wasn't announced at this moment.
Right.
And so okay, let's work on the episode. But when they sent us the storyboard and the schedule, there was not a good match because it was the end of December, and most of the French people was going back to Christmas.
Yeah.
And so I asked, sorry, can you give us another storyboard of another episode? And okay. Oh, by the way, how about the movie? Sure.
Just casually throw that in
so
there.
they tested you out on the movie.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
What a trial run! Imagine that.
And it was the first time I was doing Genga on a movie.
Oh my god!
So I had some pressure because
some pressure.
Like pressure because you know that Dragon Ball fans can be.
We've talked about it before. We've talked about Dragon Ball fans
before. Are the
before.
Dragon Balls the same? Dragon Ball fans the same in Japan like they are the West, or are you talking about the West specifically?
I don't know. Some people who can say bad things to animators.
I think it's different when an animator who worked on the movie is saying
I know. Right?
So I was I had the pressure, but I was happy. Man, I'm working on Dragon Ball, and well, yes, it's cool. And so when I was doing my drawings on Dragon Ball, I was putting chara, head chara. I was sleeping at the studio, but I was listening Dragon Ball and doing Dragon Ball.
So
just hyping yourself up.
Yes, and I had my buddy Mehdi Awishawi, who we slept at the studio and doing our Dragon Balls.
Oh my god!
So you went from being an intern to working on Lupin, and then being an in-betweener to just going straight into the Dragon Ball Super movie.
No, of course not. So I have done my internship at Telecom Animation Film at Satellite. So I have done 2 internships.
Okay.
6 months if you put
all together.
Put it all together.
And when I finished my school, I said, okay, I have done 2 internships. I know it's hard. That Telecom, it was a good mood. At the Satellite, it was more cold and you have to more hurry. And you are paid also by frame, so the money.
Oh shit!
It's per frame here rather than per day.
Am I allowed to ask what that might be per frame?
Well, when you're in betweener, you are paid like €2 per frame.
€2 per frame.
Yeah.
That's
holy shit!
My God.
So
what is that in USD?
So you would draw a frame.
€2.
Go to Family Mart, get a sandwich, and you just like
Yes,
that was
I use it.
It's like $3 or $4 US.
It's
But
less.
that's
It's
like,
less than
that's
that.
like before tax, right?
Yeah.
Oh my.
I assume you wouldn't even make enough to go
So-
for the tax cuts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my God.
So when you take a drink, you can I buy maybe yes. Oh, I have to do more frames.
so you're making a conscious
right.
choice. I need to draw more so that I can eat and drink.
Yeah.
Okay, so how long would you say it takes you to do a frame?
It depends.
It depends.
So the frame can be just 5 minutes.
Right.
Right.
Some frame can take you 2-3 hours.
Oh my. That's brutal.
I mean, this has been a hot button topic in the industry for a while. hasn't
Yeah,
it?
I think a lot of people do talk about that animators get paid. the
Just
least.
hearing it from an actual animator, just it
And also because nowadays the anime getting more details, more
And
lines.
has the
More-
price
more-
gone up?
more Sakuga.
It was 50 years ago. When you draw one frame, you can eat one ramen,
Yeah.
Right.
but the rate of the life increase.
But the
Inflation.
Price didn't. Yeah, but the price.
Oh, okay.
So now,
Damn you, inflation.
if you want to eat a ramen, you have at least to do 5 or 6 frames.
Oh my.
So, if you don't mind me asking, when you did your internship initially,
Mm.
how much were you getting paid for that? And were you living off
Well,
just that?
at the first internship, I wasn't paid.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Okay.
but the second internship, I was paid.
So it really was like a passion thing.
Yes, it was
for
a
you.
passion thing. I was knowing that my internship you are paid or not,
Yeah.
but I was paid so by frame for my internship at Satellite, and so I knew okay it will be hard. I tried to do my best, but yeah, I was just for my 1 month. My best record when I was in internship it was just 150.
150 frames.
Yeah, so it was
So like $300.
Yeah.
Oh my god! For a month of
For
work.
a month of
Yeah.
work.
And a specialized job as well.
Yeah.
So this was my internship, and so it was on paper.
So wait, the guy who was probably cleaning the toilets at the studio was probably getting paid more than you. Is that?
Yeah.
Honestly, it's
Yeah.
probably true.
Actually, if you work a company, you gain more money.
Just work in your
I just
local
wanted to,
family
put
bar.
it into perspective. That
Yeah.
like, not trying to diminish any jobs of, but like, I mean, cleaning a toilet is not a specialized.
Literally,
skill
literally
compared to-
working at McDonald's. gets you
Especially
paid
considering how art school is like one of the most expensive schools
Which is why
you
I'm
can
not,
go
I'm not
to.
trying to belittle any of the jobs. We need
Yeah.
those jobs, but like, yeah, the fact that it is a specialized job and
Yeah.
you can do your best was 300.
Bro, it was my internship.
Okay,
So it
okay.
was I had a
Still
most
for an
experience.
internship, that's not enough to live, right? So
And yes, but like I said, my mother is Japanese, so I had a family in Japan,
You were helping
in
her
Tokyo.
out.
So yes, it was cool because my family,
Very lucky,
I was
yeah.
living in the house of my grandmother, so it was cool.
oh, okay, that's nice.
Oh, yeah.
But,
so you didn't have
it's
to pay
like-
for like rent or anything.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
because I had luck, but so I was thinking, man, if for foreign people, if you don't have family,
Yeah, I was about
Yeah.
to say like
Did you have friends who didn't have family here who?
yeah, but they get a better, they could negotiate better than me.
right.
So that's why you have to. Now the good advice is you have to look the good studio to take a lot of information of each studio. How
Right.
do they pay? At Satellite, it was but it was just an internship. So I cannot take example of Satellite, but more example on Graphinica, the studio I was doing in betweens, but digital in betweens.
Right.
Right.
Digital, I was more quicker.
Okay.
But was the pay the same?
The pay was the same,
Okay.
but the pay was the same. But we had a koteikyu. It means so you have a little fixed amount of salary, and it was at least 400 euros
A month, yeah.
a month.
Okay. So
And
for
if you
internship.
and they ask you to do 300 frames per month, it was the least do 300 frames.
At least 300 frames a month.
Yes.
Wow.
And so when you success to do 300 frames, you saw 300
So you-
frames, 2 euros.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you have 600 plus the fixed salary.
Oh, so it's getting pretty
So that's
400.
about, so that's
So
about 1,000 euros.
1,000 euros.
Yeah, okay.
Still,
Yeah.
for a specialist job, that's
Yeah,
still quite
that's
low.
still very low
Yeah.
compared to other
Yes,
specialist
and
jobs.
but my best record when I was doing in between
school.
was 600. 600
frames in a month.
Yeah, 600 frames a month. So 600 to 1,200. Yeah, so you can last have 1,500 euros.
For an internship, that's probably like $1,500. That's probably not bad for an internship.
This wasn't an internship. This it was
a real job.
Real job.
Okay. Real job that kind of sucks.
Okay. Wow.
Maylene's face over there.
Maylene's like sweating right now.
So yes, and so most of my coworkers, I'm living with at my parents' house. I'm living with a share house. Yes. So you have to pay attention about your money, how you spend it.
It's not a glamorous lifestyle.
No, you don't live, you survive.
Right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people sometimes like. I remember I've had people come up to. Because I'll be like with like I remember at Anime Expo I was with Trigger and they were like, oh, they want a job at Trigger, and I'm like, do you really want a job where like you really have to work your ass off?
What are your work hours like, if you don't mind me asking?
At Graphinica?
Yeah.
So I start at 10, and it depends about the deadlines you have. Sometimes I arrived and there is a lot of cuts, and my senpai, you have to finish this for this evening.
Yeah.
At 8. Okay, so I don't eat lunch. I don't have time to eat lunch.
Very, very opposite of your
And sometimes I have some good cut. I want to do this. Please let me do this. Okay, just learn it in 3 days. Oh fuck! I will see because it was Pokemon, guys. So I wanted to work Pokemon, and
you make an exception because you're like, I like Pokemon. I'll ruin my life for Pokemon.
It was Blue. Yeah, it was the Pokemon generation on YouTube. So
cool!
Oh wow!
That one. I watched that one. Yeah.
And it was Blue with in Japanese you say Kamex, so I don't know in English.
Blastoise.
Yes, Blastoise. And so it's
there's French names as well, isn't there? French localized names.
French name is Tortank.
That sounds way more badass than Blastoise.
Well, I learned about that. Apparently, the French localizations were like really well done for Pokemon. Apparently, it was really, really well done, and all the names were like really well thought out, and to do with like a mix of Japanese and French mythology.
I mean, Tortank sounds.
Tortank sounds badass.
Cool. Tortoise, it's a tank.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, that is like the very opposite of European lifestyle, where it's like, oh, it's 5. Oh, the building's on fire. Well, it's 5 o'clock. I'm going home. It's like that's
in between you have to be passionate. You have to love animation.
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
And also it depends what kind of experience you want. If it's just I want to work just once for this show on Naruto, on One Piece, I don't know, or there. Or I was just 1 or 2 years experience in Japan. I wanted to have a career in Japan. So
it depends what experience you're looking for.
So you often find people come into the companies like, I only want to be here for a year or 2, then go back.
So sometimes some people have came in Japan and they had some homesick. Because it was the first time they came in Japan and the food didn't go well and they couldn't speak Japanese. So the most, and English was so.
Yeah.
So it was difficult to make some friends, and so you still hang around with the same people. So
It's just a completely different lifestyle.
Did you know English before you came to Japan?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was learning English at school. So
I got to ask, because you grew up in France.
Yeah.
And moving, you know about how much. Well, you were telling us earlier about how much more you can get paid doing the same job, being in France, and also having, let's say, less work hours as well. What made you decide to give that up and move to Japan and have like a? I'd say
because
like
when I tell my story of my internship to my friends. Ken, do you really want to go to Japan? You're really sure? Because me, I don't want. I want to have a life, and I could completely understand. There is no. This is the right way. No, you have everybody have his way of
doing it, right?
Doing it, and in my case, I wanted to work in Japanese animation industry because I like animation, I like manga, and there is something, how can I be a bit, masochist, but but yeah, it's the way to learn also. Yes, it's kind of bit.
I mean, it's just
difficult,
purely passion driven.
Yeah.
It just sounds like you are doing it purely for the passion.
I was going to say, for that pay, you better be passionate. Oh my
So,
God.
but yes, but in animation, the 2-3 years are hard. So if you want to do a career in Japan, so you have to speak Japanese.
Yeah.
You can manage to work in Japan with English, but just some few studios will open the doors because they have a translator or not.
Yeah.
But if you can speak Japanese, more open doors will offer to you.
And as we've established, like, from your stories, is that, getting to know the people as well, it just takes you so far in the industry.
It really does seem that, like, if you do speak Japanese, it's like way easier to get into the anime industry than I think people make it out to be.
Yeah, it's definitely easy mode, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same moving to any country and joining their industry, right?
I think because you almost find that people put like the anime industry on like a pedestal, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's the anime industry, it's mythical, it's Japanese, we don't know what happens,
Yeah.
right? But then when you talk to people, it's like, oh yeah, I get paid like €2 a frame. It's like,
That's the thing, and I think like going back to the story of the guy who came up and said like that he wanted to work at Trigger. Like, guarantee he has no idea
what it's like to actually work in Trigger.
It's like 6 o'clock's hit. He's like ready to go home, and everyone's like, no, it's 4 more hours.
Yeah, they just started.
Because yes, in Japan you have the Zangyo, and the studio say, oh, you can leave the studio at 8. But nobody leave at 8.
Exactly.
You can leave at 8, and then you see nobody leaving at 8.
Yeah. The clock out times in Japanese companies is not an official clock out time. It's like a suggested clock out time. But
so when I was working at Graphinica, at first in my mind I say 1 year. We'll see how 1 year will be. If it's too hard, I will go back to France and. First 1 year, and okay, I think I can do 1 year plus like that. 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, and now I'm at my 5 years, and yes, I still now I have found a good studio for C. I learn a lot from my senpais, and I can do more.
How much longer do you think though? Because you said you were 31, right?
Yeah.
Still doing all nighters, crunch times and stuff.
Body cannot do
I was gonna say, because like I've just hit my 30s as well, and man, all nighters they definitely hit different. Your
I'm
body.
not even in my 30s and I can't do all nighters anymore.
Because when you're 20,
problem.
Exactly.
A few cans of Red Bull, it's easy.
Staying up 48 hours is like no problem.
When I was younger, getting you drink at night and you go to work the other day. It was okay. Now
it's like, it's 11 p.m. Fuck, I'm
I definitely do find that my willpower is overexerting my body. I'm like, no, I can do this. I'm dying.
So you have to push yourself, and like I said, so it's a lot of hours you are sitting. And sometimes I don't feel well because I had a lot of pain in my feet, and because I was always sitting, and so they had an amount of blood on my ankles was
swollen.
Oh my god!
So
that's what happens, when you're like sitting in a plane for a long time. Right? Like your feet just get
I guess it
You
is.
could die from that.
And so I had to get up and walk because it was too painful.
Jesus. This episode of Trash Taste is sponsored by Honey.
Yes.
We all shop online.
Yes.
And we've seen that promo code field that taunts us at the checkout.
But thanks to Honey, manually searching for coupon codes is a thing of the goddamn past.
Yes.
Honey is a free browser extension that scours the internet for promo codes and applies the best ones it finds to your cart. Supporting over 30,000 stores online, they range from sites that have tech and gaming products to popular fashion brands and even food delivery.
Damn, that's epic.
You know what, Connor? I actually took your advice and I bought myself a Dyson.
I knew it, God, dude.
I don't. You know
the
what?
suction power on those things
was
is
the
immense.
best decision. It was the best decision of my life. I even saved $20 on it.
Get out of here, Con.
Yes.
Get out of here.
That's a lot of money.
I mean, considering the price of those damn things, you better be saving some money. And thanks to Honey for enabling us to save money on our vacuums for the good suck. Imagine it. You're shopping on your favorite website. I know what it is. Don't tell me. When you're at the checkout, Honey automatically searches for all the best coupons. All you need to do is click Apply Coupons and it will find it.
If Honey finds a working coupon, you'll watch as the prices just drop.
Honey has found its over 17 million members over $2 billion in savings. Not million, billion.
And that's a lot of gacha money that I could put into the system.
You have an addiction, can't stop.
If you already don't have honey, you can be straight up missing on some free savings.
Wow. It's literally free to install, and it takes seconds, guys.
And by getting it, you'll be doing yourself a solid and supporting the boys.
I like that.
So you can get honey free today at joinhoney.com/trash-taste.
That's joinhoney.com/trash-taste. Back to the episode.
Yeah, I guess going off of that, I want to ask, like, obviously you draw God knows how many hours per day, right? Like, I'm sure you've run into, like, injuries and, like, wrist problems. Like, is there, like, certain stuff that you do to, like, make sure you don't hurt yourself?
Well, I have to do some stretch.
Yeah.
I have a massage ball for my hands. I have to stretch like that, or my
do you
muscles.
wear, like, those, like, wrist guards that I see some animators wearing?
No, not me. But every 2 hours I have to do some stretch because sitting. And you also have a good seat.
Good seat.
Do you have a good gamer chair at home?
I don't remember the brand, but in fact, I'm working on tablet.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I cannot be like that.
Oh, you're like hunched over?
Yeah.
Right.
I am
Sorry. Don't forget the microphone, by the way.
sorry.
No, I guess it's the same kind of precautions a lot of, let's say, like professional gamers and esports athletes have to go through, because you doing a lot of movements on your wrist, right?
Carpal tunnel, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes I have pain here, so I
no.
massage. In fact, animators have to do sport also, because so I sometimes went to go gym with my friend Mehdi and to do some exercise,
right?
And because you lose muscles.
You
I
do.
definitely feel doing YouTube as well, because I'm sat at my desk all day. And I'm like, I got to do something.
With the corona, so now you don't live much, you don't move much.
Like to the desk, to the fridge, right?
Yeah,
that's
as like a teenager sitting at your desk playing video games all day and all night, whatever. You never think about, what are the ergonomics right now? You never think about
what
that.
part of my body am I injuring?
Yeah, exactly.
I did feel bad, because when I used to play games, like, pretty much from after school till I went to bed.
Yeah.
And I never had any problems. And my other friend would play like 2 hours a night if he was lucky, and he got carpal tunnel.
Oh, Jesus.
From that, and I was like, you're weak.
You're weak.
Real gamers. Don't listen to that.
You ain't a pro gamer. Look at those weak wrists. Get out of here. Those aren't gamer wrists. Get some real thumbs.
I was just like worried. I'm like, why are my wrists not giving in, and this man's are giving in? Like, there must be
some like Chad wrists.
Yeah, maybe I came out the womb with just like wrists.
These like thickest wrists.
It's like natural selection like chose you in the wrong way.
My kid is gonna have like jacked wrists. Like natural selection is gonna kick in and like overflow. Oh my god.
So most of when you are young, you can stay more longer at the studio, work hard. But when you get older, you have now a family, kids, and
you can't afford to just stay there all day.
You go back to home and.
No wonder your senpais can draw so fast. They need to. Otherwise,
and they was trained to. So
right.
And this pressure and these those deadlines make them more faster and good. You have the quality. But sometimes when you not have much experience, you have to get faster, and sometimes you have to sacrifice the quality. And I suppose,
are those the scenes that kind of always get memed on Twitter and social media and stuff like that?
Yes, and also you have those scenes. They was a bit a mess. Some because of the communication wasn't good with the assistant production. The animator didn't have time to do it, or the animator couldn't do it. Okay, we have nobody. Okay, we'll give it to China or Korea to do it, and China, Korea, we don't have time, we have to speed it.
Right. 7 deadly sins.
Yes. 7 deadly sins, it depends also which studio will do it. Because sometimes you have gloss, So, for example, you have studio A will do all the episode of 12 episode, but we don't have much time. We have to do, we will do just a 10 episode, and the 2 other will be done by different studio. So they will ask to studio B and C to do each one episode. And if B and C don't have the good staff,
It looks bad.
You have some accident. And also, more than the studio, you should more look the staff. The staff is the studio is like a share.
It's the staff that matter the most.
The studio will give a good environment for a good working place for the animators and a good assistant productions. But all the skills and all the staff will be all in freelance. So it's the studio who if you can do this project and we can give you a good working place.
Yeah.
Can you?
Because I've always wondered, because there's always like the meme in our community where if an episode is animated well versus an episode that's animated bad, we always talk about like, oh, it's the budget. They're not given enough budget. But like, how true is that? Is that actually reflected, or like is it is it all about the staff that they can hire and the staff that's available?
Also the staff. There are a lot of things. In fact, you have also the budget. But the budget, for example, you have an episode where you have a lot of action, a lot of movement. Actually, one episode is 350 cuts.
Right.
But for a lot of heavy episode, a lot of action, epic episode can have 500 cuts.
Right.
So for this episode, it will be
more expensive.
More expensive.
You're paying per cut.
Yeah.
Per cut. But so for the next episode, you have to adjust this.
Right.
So if you had the climax on episode 7, so maybe episode 8 will be more cool.
Right.
And you talked about some animators being more experienced and more skilled and like have making a name for themselves. Can they negotiate a higher price per cut?
Actually, so the rate of the cut is when you have the offer, they said the rate of the cut is this. So most of the series is 4,500 yen.
Right.
So I don't know.
$45 roughly.
roughly.
For one cut?
One cut.
Okay.
So one cut can take you like 1 hour, 1 day, 2 days.
Oh gosh.
$45 for 2 days of work.
Or sometimes it can take you 1 week.
I know a great website called Fiverr. You might. Okay.
So like that, you can ask. Excuse me. You try to negotiate.
My rent is this much.
So you have to negotiate for this cut. It's a bit heavy cut. Can you put it twice twice the price or 3 times the price, please? You have to negotiate, and sometimes if you are very, very famous, like we call this a super animator, like a one-man army, you say my rate is this.
And they pay.
Okay, and they pay.
They want you. They want you because
you just got to put your dick on the table.
You have now if you are really famous, but I'm calling like a veteran animator, they have the name value, or because he's in the show, people want to look it.
Right.
And that's kind of how like it works with like YouTubers too, right? It's just like if you're a famous YouTuber that has so much years of experience, then you can just be like, I
mean, honestly, if you've made a name for yourself, you deserve a higher cut.
Right.
Actually, we can say that it's a bit like soccer teams. When I want to win Ronaldo or I want Messi.
You got to pay the money, right? Yeah.
Is that why whenever you see like the climax of a big scene, especially in like some shonen anime or like some big, you always see the same names animating those?
Same names, yes, or some new ones, because some you cannot relate only of some few names. You have to find new talent.
People, right.
And yes,
are they constantly looking for new animators?
Always.
Right. Yeah. I guess it's because if you're not getting paid like a lot, it's hard to find people who want to do it, right?
Yeah. Actually, if you're too expensive, we don't have the budget, sorry, so we are going to find someone else.
Right. And you mentioned Twitter as well. Is that how they find a lot of the newer talent?
Yeah, Twitter also, because now we're on Twitter. I think you know the web generation. Yeah. Some quite foreign animators who, work on pretty much.
I'm just wondering. So, is there this much of a shortage of animators in Japan that they have to look literally on Twitter? They're doing what we do and just browsing Twitter and being like, you seem to have a good portfolio.
Or by a recommendation by other senpai. Oh, I had worked with this young guy. He's pretty skillful. Or have worked with this. We had some problem, but you can manage to work on it. So you have depends. If you work with foreign people, you know that they are learning by themselves. By themselves, and they're doing all the best that they want, and they accept the amount of money. And so if there is an accident, it's normal because they're learning by themselves. And you have to teach them how to get better.
Yeah, because I actually have like an artist friend who used to like draw stuff for me like years ago, who ended up being an animator for Black Clover.
Yeah, same here. Like I had an artist who I was following in an animator, and then they just showed up working on Sword Art Online.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like,
shout out to K Animations.
Yeah, it's just weird how that. Like, I didn't think like I'd always heard of like the web gen animators, right? As we call them, but like I've never actually like seen it happen. So when I saw it happen, I was like, oh wow, they actually use Twitter as like a form of like auditioning.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I think the flashpoint, we can say it like that, was maybe at the Boruto episode 65. You have a
that fight.
Yeah, that
fight. Oh, it's the Sasuke and Naruto versus Momoshiki fight.
Yeah, and in fact, the episode director was Sekiko-san, and he's a Chinese guy who success to call a lot of foreign animators, and he was by himself doing the assistant projection by himself, trying to contact a lot of animators, check their cut, put some correction, and I think he have spent 2 months at the studio, but because of him, he could manage a lot of animators to work on this episode, and the episode 65 of Boruto was a masterclass.
Yeah, I mean, that was my favorite fight of that year.
I've seen the fight. I don't know anything, but
I haven't seen Boruto. I've just seen that fight.
I've seen that fight too.
And that was by far like the best fight of the year, in my opinion.
Right. And with this episode, it's proof, okay, foreign animators can also work on Japanese animation, but you have problems also about communication. You have some staff who have to speak English, or if they can speak Japanese, it's okay. Or sometimes you have some mistakes by them. But yes, it's if you work with foreign, it's happened. But if you correct them, and they will do their best to.
What would you say is the best way for, let's say, a young animator to get involved in the anime industry now?
Well, now, like I said, it depends the experience you want. If you want just just want to work on one piece or just once, okay. So Twitter will be okay, I think. Or I want just a 1 year experience. So if you want to come to Japan, you have to find a studio could prove you a visa.
Right.
Can
be a lot of hoops to jump.
Yeah.
And if you want a career, I want to work in Japan, I want to live in Japan, I want to marry a Japanese girl, I want to
I want that ideal weeb lifestyle.
And so
bored of you to assume you're going to have enough time and money to marry a Japanese girl as an animator.
I was thinking of asking, but I don't know how personal it is, because you mentioned that, like, obviously the senpais, they have a family and whatnot. How the fuck does anyone date who's an animator? Because it sounds like you guys never leave the office. So how do you date? You bring them to the office, you're like, hold on, I'm going to do a keyframe, I'll answer that question.
Yeah, it's a bit like that.
Have you ever brought a date to the office?
No, not me. But actually, yes. So I'm working at the studio, and also sometimes I'm working on 2 shows at the same time. So I'm working on the movie, and sometimes
how do you find the time?
Because
unless you're dating like another key animator.
Yo, she's 2 blocks down.
She's like 3 tables away.
Actually, I prefer to not date at the workplace. It's better. And
shit where you eat, right?
Always speaking about animations, for going to a bit kill my passion, I will say I prefer to talk other things. So
of course.
I mean, you have enough of your life revolving around animation. I'm sure you want to break
because
from that as well.
I'm thinking animation. I work animation. I shit animation. So
that's the thing, right? It's like you're doing so much with animation. So it's like, how do you find time to be like, you know what? Today I'm just gonna go out of town. Just go.
Did you get a lot of downtime?
Yes. Because now, like I said. So the few years are hard, but you can manage with the studio to have a kosoku, and kosoku is mean a fixed contract, you can say, and you can get paid per month.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is
salary.
You have to.
You can negotiate to get a salary. All right, okay.
Okay.
So, but you have to prove yourself. Okay. So you at first you
You have to prove yourself that you can get a salary.
Yeah, this is so bizarre.
because like I said, you all those salary all those money is by self.
You got to prove your
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
You don't sign contracts.
Oh, really?
Yes. Or you get paid this amount, but you sign nothing. It's just by speaking.
Do you,
So
and
it's all
do you get it-
verbal?
Yes,
So
or by
it's-
mail.
Do you get it? Do you get it like in cash or like what? Like is it?
No, by bank.
Oh my!
Bank
the
transfer.
bank doesn't
Bank
ask
transfer.
questions. The bank believes you. No,
Yeah,
no, trust me, we had a deal.
It's freelance in Japan.
Oh my god!
But that kind of goes completely against what we talked about with like Twitter artists, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like you have to like sign a contract and like get an NDA
Yeah.
and all that shit just to
Yeah.
like protect your identity. Where in Japan it's just like, yeah, we promise we'll give you this
I
amount.
have more security
trust.
buying something off eBay. Jesus Christ.
And you don't sign NDA in Japan.
Yeah,
Yes, because you can come here and talk about the things that you
Yeah,
work
but-
on.
yeah,
Yeah.
technically he
Yeah.
could, yeah.
I mean, you were telling it's all based on the trust system. Is this true
Yeah.
even for when they like contact a random Twitter animator and ask them to work on a new project? It's not under NDA or anything like that.
They trust you.
So that animator who could say no and be like, guys, I know the next movie that's coming out.
Yeah,
You want-
like that.
Oh my,
Oh my
god.
god. How has there not
still
been
happening?
like a
Yeah.
leak every
Yeah.
week?
Because it's the trust of the trust of the studio on the animators, and if you have some leaks, but you get just blacklisted.
Yeah, true.
That's true.
And if you get blacklisted, you find no more works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's crazy.
it's up to you if you want to still work.
Don't fuck it up.
Yeah, just don't fuck up, yeah.
I'm surprised there hasn't been like just one person,
Yeah.
one rogue animator hasn't popped up in the entire history of anime.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Well, if you mess up, you some big names who, what did you done?
Yeah.
Right. Fuck.
Jesus.
Scary.
Yeah.
And I guess it would make sense because a lot of these people look up to the directors, right, and the people in
Yeah.
charge. So I doubt they would try and.
I guess it'd be like
ruin it.
backstabbing your idol, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The thing you love, right?
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
anime.
yeah,
So I
exactly.
guess that makes sense.
I guess, do we want to talk about the thing that probably
Yes.
all three of us have been wanting to ask?
Yeah, I mean, as an animator on
Yeah.
Twitter and everything like that.
Your opinion matters.
Yeah, your opinion, your opinion matters.
Our opinion doesn't mean shit. Your opinion, on the other hand, it means a lot.
Like, how do you feel about artists and animators getting backlash after an episode has aired?
For example, Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it. Go on.
Yeah.
For some reason, people are very, very angry and have been sending even, I think, death threats.
Yeah.
To
So like
some
directors
people.
and animators
Okay.
on Twitter and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And it's just,
Does that scare you or anything like that? Working on projects? And
Well,
being
if
very-
I had those kind of threats, it will be, I messed up. But
no, you shouldn't be like that.
actually, in my case, it's just Twitter, internet. I don't have time to bother about that. I have to concentrate on my
you're too
drawings.
busy doing work,
True.
right? Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, but for people who gave all the guts, didn't sleep, managed to deliver the episode and receive all the threats, it's a bit. It's a bit
I
not
feel like
bit. It's
they don't
very
get paid
hard.
enough to deal with threats.
Yeah.
They put in
And-
the hard work.
Yeah, and I think that most of you animators know their work and I couldn't done this good well, but I managed to deliver the episode. They know their level and they want to progress to good.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to do the good episode, want to make a quality,
Yeah.
Right.
but you have to manage it with the amount of schedule, the amount of money,
Right.
and it's it's very hard. And sometimes you in animation, a good schedule, a good something going well doesn't exist in animation.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of problems, teeny problems you have to adjust.
Right. It's not just like the problem of like, the single animator,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that the animator probably has to juggle. But like,
Yeah.
if I like, but say for example, like I would maybe understand a little more if even the animator looked at what they did and was like, yeah, that wasn't my best work. But this is Attack on Titan we're talking
Yeah.
about. And it's
Yeah.
been pretty amazing so far.
Have you been following the episodes of Attack on Titan?
Yes, I have watched the last one also.
Yeah, and people are for some reason, are very vocal. They're like, "Oh, it's terrible now. The animation quality is terrible."
I think most of the people don't like the CGI. I think, and if you are used to something that which studio have done with this quality, and now it's with CGI. Actually, me too. When I see, this is in CGI. Well, I prefer it. It was more on Sakuga. I understand.
Yeah, but you can say that because you're in that.
I understand. And some of the animators, CGI is. I would prefer Sakuga, but it's not a reason to.
It's not and
like people like the show's ruined. The CGI has ruined my show, and it's like, what? What do you mean? It's so bizarre.
But like people are also complaining about some of the Sakuga as well.
Really?
Yeah, I've been seeing that. Like some I've seen some people on Twitter.
The last episodes have been awesome.
Yeah, no, but some people on Twitter have like done comparisons with like the manga panels, for example, and being like, it's completely ruined. It's not exactly the same, right? Like how do you feel about stuff like that?
They push too much.
Because I've always wondered, because you've worked on some pretty high-profile shows.
My Hero had this problem as well.
Yeah, My Hero had this problem a lot.
Do you ever, like, when working on it, do you ever like feel the pressure whenever you're working on a big IP that you need to and want to deliver?
Actually, I know that most of when I post something of my Gengar in Twitter, it's not my animation that have likes. It's more the IP has likes.
Right.
I think people don't. I don't know. Most of the people put the like or the retweet. But because it's I like this IP.
Yeah, not because I like
JoJo fans, right?
Yeah,
JoJo. I did see on your Twitter.
Actually, I think it was my JoJo.
Of course, it was
had the most retweets.
Was it the Pesci?
Yes.
Because I think I saw the animation that you did for that.
Yes, like the Bucciolaci versus Pesci.
I love that's like literally like the best fight in part 4. Like that's so good, and it was amazing.
Oh man, it was so hard to this because it was in 2018. It was Christmas, and I spent all my Christmas and New Year at working at the studio. I spent 3 weeks at sleeping at the studio to finish.
3 weeks sleeping at the studio.
Yeah.
It was for the Pesci fight.
Because I had to finish the Hiroaka layout, and after Hiroaka, I had my.
Wait, so you were working on the Hiroaka layout while you were working on the JoJo Gengar?
When I finished the Hiroaka, bam, JoJo came back. And the deadline was like the 10th of January. And so most of my coworkers went to, was at Tiapico, so most of it was in French people. So they went back to France. I spent the New Year and they came back. And at this moment, when they went to France, I had no beer. And when they came back, I had a big bear.
Just haven't left the office.
Yes, I haven't left the office.
Just like became a hermit.
Basically, and so I was going to Gold Gym to have my shower.
Oh my god!
So when you went, that must have been like the case where like if you were there all the time, you probably like, were you just thinking about it in the shower as well? You're like thinking about what you were going to draw next as well? Yeah,
but shower takes time, but sometimes you can eat or smell bad, I have to take a shower.
Oh my God.
So
you've got to optimize your showers. It's just like, do you ever get to the point when you're just like eating too much time?
So I was watching an episode, eating, and okay, if the episode finished, I have finished to eat, okay, go back to work.
Jeez.
Wow.
You're welcome, JoJo fans.
Yeah. You're welcome, anime fans.
And so yes, I get sick also. I think I had eat a bad one, or I have a influenza. How do you say in English?
You got influenza.
Yeah, I get influenza this time.
You got flu.
And so I was working like that.
Literally killing yourself for JoJo fans.
You can say you were. I think you can say
I was trying to do my best on this one.
I think a lot of people would argue that's one of the best fight scenes in part 5.
Yeah.
You're right?
Like, I think it looks amazing as well.
Yeah. I think all of part 5, everyone could tell.
Not just saying that because you're here.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a crowd favorite.
Like I said, animations is a teamwork. So like I said, I do the rough animation after the director put some correction. So something that was too little, how can I say, you can push more this arm, the director will put it, and after the director of animation will put the more in model.
Right.
And so these 3 steps are very important. After I received this correction, I redraw everything with all the details, all the shadows, all the lights, all the perfect frames. So yes, it's a teamwork. And after this drawing, it will be the in-betweener who will clean up and put in between. It's a very teamwork. It's not just one animator's work. Is you have the director of animation, the in-betweener, the color.
I'm curious. This may be a dumb question. Do you like hear? So when you're drawing it, I assume is the voice acting recorded at that point, or is it not recorded?
No, it's
after.
way after.
Way after. Oh, wow.
The voice acting is post-production.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you don't even get to like hear the lines as you're drawing or anything?
Sometimes you have some rough voice,
Right.
but it's not the final voices.
Right.
Yeah.
It's mostly just like, I think it's written out in the layout section, right? Of the actual what they're going to say in this particular
At the storyboard, and after you have the timesheet when at this moment you have the ha, he, hu, he, ho.
Oh, and then the voice actors match that.
Yeah.
So all anime is dubbed anime.
It is dubbed. Yeah.
Wow. Checkmate.
Checkmate, Subalitists. I've always been curious because obviously like you work on a lot of Shonen Jump properties, and that's obviously based on like adapting manga panels. As an animator, do you ever like look at the manga panels of like the cut you're animating, or do you just try to go in fresh?
Of course. When I do the meetings, I have the manga on my side because they have print the manga.
Okay.
Your scene will be on this part of the manga, and they give it to me. And so, yes, it's important to read a bit of the manga because you to more know how is the characters, and also when you speak with the director, he will say, so this character is more calm, he don't have much expression,
right?
And so he less cold man, ice face.
I guess you got to know the personality of the character to know how they move and speak.
Yeah.
So if you have read the manga, it's a good job because the director will be he has read the manga, so he knows the show and
right, that makes sense.
So all animators are manga readers.
No, it depends. Sometimes I didn't. I read everything.
just proving your own point.
But my buddy Mehdi hadn't read the show, and so but he worked on it also. So.
And I guess then in that sense, I guess like anime originals must be so hard.
Yeah,
so much harder because there's no
there's no reference point to
like light novels, I guess even.
Oh, but even still, right? Like light novels would be even harder because you got to it's just all words. It's all text.
It's all
right?
text.
If you want a good fact, when I was working on Dragon Ball Super Broly, I didn't know it was Broly.
Oh, really?
Oh, I think it was.
I was working on the Dragon Ball movie, but I didn't know who was the bad guy. Toei didn't
read it.
But no, because Toei didn't say to me.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
They're just like, draw this.
Yeah.
Wait, they kept the fact that Broly was a bad guy? Like a secret from the animators?
It was a secret that I didn't know. The title of the show is Broly.
So you animated that without even knowing the context of of the entire cut.
Yeah.
You were just like, sick Broly.
Because for my
sounds insane.
Because my cut was just Vegeta was grumbling against Goku.
Yeah.
And so yes, and I think they didn't want some leaks about Broly. So
I mean that makes sense.
I mean, they could also just
sign an NDA.
What?
Never heard of it.
I'm curious. This is just such a vague question. What is your top anime shows for you personally?
Original anime show.
Anything.
I prefer to talk about original anime.
Sure.
Because when it's adaptation, you have more the power of the manga.
Right.
And so maybe I like Evangelion, like I said, and Gurren Lagann.
Gurren Lagann.
The Gainax.
I guess just a little like Gainax trigger.
Trigger because they had the power to do original animation, and it was great. After I don't watch so much show than before, so I forgot.
Too busy making.
And also when you what's your top 10? You forgot always.
No, we were exactly the
same. I put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
I do want to know that as an animator, are there any like scenes or any animation cuts that you really look up to and you like idolize as legendary and have inspired you?
like you have a lot of animation of wow, how did he make this movement?
Right.
And so when you doing frame per frame when you animate,
right,
watch the movement. Okay, this frame is just exposed at 1, 2. Oh, this frame is exposed at 3, and at this moment you have the fire come here, and you analyze the movement like that, frame by frame. Every animator is doing like that, and so so this is the key animation. This
so
must
you're
be
watching
the
anime really slow. You just
At first, I watched the anime like everybody, and what was this movement? So I put stop and frame.
Oh no!
I guess like an animator, or I guess like director that comes to mind when it comes to like amazing animation would be like Satoshi Kon, right?
Yeah,
like
Kon Satoshi.
Kon Satoshi, like he managed to like animate in a way, because I think I saw it in some kind of interview with him like way before that like the reason why he went into animation was because his way of directing is too fast for live action.
Yeah.
So whereas like, because there's so many cuts in Kon movies where it's like a blink.
Yeah.
It's so fast, it's almost subliminal that you just can't replicate in live action. And it's just, I don't know, like, even, I'm not an animator at all or anything, but like, you can watch a Satoshi Kon movie and be like, how do you even like think to animate something like that?
I have one of my senpai who had worked on a Kon Satoshi movie. It was the co-director of Tokyo Godfather. His name is Furia Shogo-san. And the Kon movies are very realistic, but on the character, the expression. But in Senenju, Millennium Actress, the way he mix up the fiction, the reality is so good.
It's like the scene transitions, right? It's just like nuts,
and it's so. You can watch it every time, and you have the pressure. In this cut, it should connect with this. And also I like a Tokyo Godfather because I don't know. It's a movie you want to watch it at Christmas.
It's one of the few Christmas anime movies I feel. It's not that it was meant to be a Christmas anime movie. It was just happens to be on Christmas, right?
And but one my senpai said Kon Satoshi was one of the best, or maybe best anime.
I
and he's
totally
really, really fast. Execution in he have a perfect drawing.
Because I think I saw that like Satoshi Kon used to like draw some of his own animations as well, right? Like
because
he was a key animator of his own shows.
He have done mangaka. He was manga. He had work on a lot of with Katsuhiro Otomo. And I don't know he have work on Akira or not, I don't remember, but yes, he was very close with Otomo, with those generation of artists who was a lot of movie makers in Japan.
As an animator, what do you think of like Akira, for instance, like the animation?
Akira is amazing animation.
Because I feel that like when people say Akira, they're just like, this animation hasn't aged like it's aged so well, even though it's like a 30
if you want a bit of the for animators the good animation, you have Jinro.
I've heard that's pretty legendary.
For my senpai, he said that Jinro is the animation realistic the most push at extreme.
Right.
Too much extreme that most of the animators is just for masturbation of animation. For him, he said it's too much, but he said the good entertainment one and with the good animation also very pushed was Memories.
The Ultima Katsura.
Yes, and you have the Magnetic Rose. Magnetic Rose
is so good.
Yes,
and any of these.
Each plan of Magnetic Rose of animation is a masterclass because it's most of the frames are exposition or three frame and the less frame, but just good drawings, good timings, and masterpiece.
Magnetic Rose, if you don't know, is like a space opera Akira. That's the only way to describe it. It's
how old is it?
How old is it? It's like from the 90s, late 90s. I think. It was it was quite a while after, but it's like a Magnetic Rose is like a short film that Otomo Katsura directed.
I think a 40 minutes.
It's like a 40-minute like short film, but it's it's basically just space opera Akira is the only way to describe it, but it's fucking amazing.
And with the same team that Magnetic Rose, you have Hashire Melos, Ron Melos.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it, but I had watched some cuts of Hashire Melos, and it's very impressive. So yes.
So I guess if you want to be an animator, just study those. Right?
This is the realist one, the gold age of animators, we say.
It's interesting hearing an actual opinion from an actual animator, because it's because whenever we think of like, oh, what do we think is the best animated whatever or anime of all time, like most people would say like Redline probably is the one that comes to my mind.
Definitely.
Yeah. Do you think that? What's your opinion about like older anime versus like newer digitized anime?
Oh yeah. Well, digital animation is you can get quicker because we can work at your place and send by mail all the datas. It's not paper; you don't have to scan it. But the problem of still in the animation industry, the most of it, like I said, the Sakkan, the animation director, most of them are on paper. So
because they've been in the industry for so long.
So long, and they would like to learn some digital animation, but they don't have the time, or they don't care. Anyway, I just
need paper recipe.
I will work 10 years and will die. So
I'll die doing animation on paper.
I learned animation on paper. I will die doing animation on paper.
Some of my senpai have tried to learn digital animation, but he was too much stressed that he have a pain on stomach and had to go to hospital.
Oh no, God! Oh my!
It's horrible, but I have to laugh at that.
So me, I'm doing in digital. And so I'm doing my layout in digital. So, but if the second have to check it, put correction, they have to print it. And so they put correction, but me, I'm doing.
But then fax it back to you, right?
So they have to scan it.
That was a joke, right?
No, it was a joke.
Oh my God! I was joking. I didn't realize. Oh God!
Because they have the correction is on paper. No, the fax. But they have to print it. They scan it to send it me back by a data and for me to doing digital. So I think now most of the in-betweens are digital, but it depends. So digital and paper are a bit, but I think in fact the good animators are still on paper. And
right.
Nowadays some youngs are more on digital, but the problem is software. You have to pay it, and most of the software are expensive.
Yeah, especially commercial licenses are very expensive.
And also, you know how much animators are paid, so they can
afford,
there is good software like TV Paint, but too expensive. So
I can't believe the software is like too expensive for the people who are going to use the software. So for the people who are going to use the software for what it was designed to do.
It's like sorry man, we want to pay you more, but Photoshop is like $60 a month. So it's kind of expensive.
A lot of now young animators are working on Blender. Because Blender is free. It's free, and you can do 3D and 2D animation at the same time. And I think
I thought that was just a meme. So people in the anime industry are actually using Blender.
Some of them, not everybody, but
I guess the meme had to come from somewhere, right?
So because it's like a meme now. Whenever we see something bad, that is like, oh, this looks like it was animated in Blender. I didn't think it was any reality to that.
Shit. Slowly closes Blender.
But in fact, the stuff doesn't. It doesn't a big point. If you put it as still on like a paper, because the correction will be on paper or on digital. But if it's on JPEG, every soft can open a JPEG.
I'm curious, being an animator, because like we do anime videos on YouTube and talk about anime, and as someone who watches anime as a job, I cannot I still enjoy anime, but I can't enjoy anime the same way I used to as a kid.
Yeah.
As someone who actually works on anime, has it changed your view of anime at all and how you watch it and everything like that?
Actually, for some of my friends now, they watch less and less animation, and they are more critics.
Right.
Hard
That
about
does tend to happen.
Yeah.
I can't imagine an animator casually sitting down to watch an anime.
Man, I can't wait for my favorite season of 7 Deadly Sins.
and
What did you think about that? Sorry,
I just watched the first season, so
Okay.
Have you seen pictures of season 3?
I seen on Twitter. Yeah,
Do I need to ask your opinion, or is it obvious?
yeah, I understand your feeling.
Sorry, I love memeing it. It's just like a disaster. Like, how did it happen? you
Yeah,
know?
well, like I said, maybe it was a gloss. So they asked another studio. The studio had a
Right.
time.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have a second animation
Yeah.
director. Like I said, if you have a good animation director, it can change
Everything.
everything.
It got fixed in the Blu-ray though, right?
Did it? I don't think
I
so.
think.
What we mean? It must be redone from the ground
Yeah,
up.
Yeah.
Like, at what point do you just be like, all right, just don't air this, just redo it, like, just start over, please. Like, I'm kidding. Sorry, what were we saying? I got my interrupted. Sorry. Oh, critics of the
Critics.
Yeah.
But when I watch anime, I look more about the technique, how they made up, and wow, how did he do that? Like I do a frame by frame. But also, when you watch too much animation now, you know the pattern. Okay, the guy wants to another isekai. If you want a 2-3 isekai, you know how it will finish. So
I feel called out now.
John's job.
Yeah,
So-
I guess for animators, it's just like watching anime is just like study material, isn't it?
yeah, for most of the animators, now one of my senpai, he said I don't watch anime now. I'm more watching live movies. And if I watch anime, I'm watching animation of Honda or Inoue-san. I think it's maybe the best animators in Japan.
Right. Kind of to see where the benchmark is.
I think Inoue-san's nickname is The Machine.
The machine.
Right.
Jesus.
What has Inoue-san worked on?
Inoue-san, he is most of the directors of Magnetic Rose.
Oh, okay.
Basically, like the VIP of anime.
Oh, okay.
VIP, and you have a Gengashu. Gengashu, do you know what is Gengashu? Genga, so the key poses, issue of archive of game.
It's like an archive, like a collection, like an artwork of.
Art book, yes, it's an art book of keyframes.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of, when it's in Inoue-san, every animator's buy it because it's Inoue-san. He's the man of animation.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. So you have some animators who are very, very talented, and they are like Sushio-san of Trigger, Nakamura Yataka of Bones.
Yeah.
Those names are very. They have put their touch in animation industry that now.
It's like the kind of animators where, like, even if you're not exactly like a Sakura Tard, you can just be like, that's a Sushio.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
whatever.
Nakamura, it's very famous in young animators. So Nakamura's using a lot of impact frames.
Yeah. I did notice that. There's a lot of more impact frames. Like impact frames is, you know, in the fight scene where it has like the kind of negative of the image, where it's like you have the fight animation, and then sometimes it will just like go into like the black and white negative of it for like a few frames. I'm pretty sure he started that trend, right?
Yeah, I think he was one of the first, and he's very famous because of his Yutapon. It's a Debrix with the cube form.
Yeah, so you've definitely seen some of his fights. He did a lot of like the My Hero Academia fights.
Every shot you say on My Hero Academia, holy shit, it's him.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's like
Like
when
the Todoroki
like
versus Bakugo.
yeah,
fight.
like when the ground explodes, then it's like blocks of ground.
Oh yeah.
like
That's
that.
cool.
Yeah, when it explodes, it's like square blocks.
And he's now very famous because he put his touch, and so most of every young animators he imitate him, learn from his animation.
That's crazy.
And
I guess like, you know, you probably plan to do like more stuff, right? But like, I guess like, what's like one anime that you've looked at, or like one creator that you looked at and been like, I wish I worked on that? Is there like an anime where you just like the animation, like, or the story was just like so cool, and you think like, man, I wish I had like worked on that?
I don't know if there's. In fact, it's difficult to put just one.
Right.
But for example, I would like, if I had the occasion, I would like to work. Well, now it's finished, but the last Evangelion film, I would like to work on it.
Oh yeah.
Oh
But
my God.
yeah, it's a. In fact, there is a. It depends also of my schedule, if it's possible, if I have the level or not. Because for Evangelion, I think there are only just very
very few animators.
I'm saying the most strongest animators in Japan.
Okay.
Because it's Evangelion, the director is Anno Hideyoshi.
Yeah.
So I think most of his Inoue Honda-san was working on
Yeah.
it.
Does it hurt when you have to deny like a job that you really wanted to do because of your schedule?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have so much denied some proposal, some good stuff still not announced.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
I want to work on and so I send them in.
I'll draw one frame.
Sometimes, fuck my life. I want to draw it. But I also have a girlfriend. But I have to, like I said, it's a good balance you have to find with your privacy, your work, doing some.
It's like, I'll see you in 2 months, girlfriend.
Because some animators have worked too much, and there was Mary that divorced because they worked too much.
Right.
So and they said me, don't mess like me.
I'm
Take
sorry.
care of yourself.
I'm sorry, honey. I'm married to My Hero Academia. Thank you very much. Is there any IPs you still want to work on that you haven't? had a chance to
quite
yet?
a lot of. I would like to. Actually, my part 6 of JoJo is my prefer. I like Jolene.
Oh yeah, of course.
And
Let's go.
I would like to work on Chainsaw Man also.
Right.
Like I said, I like a pretty much jump. So, but
the shonen stuff, right?
shonen stuff I like. But
One of those fans.
but the reminder is not also the big IP. Also, it's work also with good senpai.
Right.
Because
Right.
actually I'm working on the movie, and I've learned so much, and it's not an. It's amazing.
It's amazing experience.
And the way
Lost for words.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
good.
you can learn every day. That's cool. Or something. Man, I don't understand this way, and he
I'll show you.
show you, and
That's so cool.
yeah, it's so much cool.
It sounds like you're like every animator is constantly just learning and training themselves up.
Of course,
right?
we want to improve. We want to push our limits, and but sometimes you have a war and you have to pass it, but how can I?
This sounds like a shonen anime in itself.
Everyone at the office is blasting you say run.
Every animator's in their training arc.
You got to push past your limits.
Yes, it's a bit like that.
Carpal tunnel nonsense. Push past it.
But the only things that you are sitting. So
All the riders is just a roadblock. You can get over it.
Damn.
So that's why sometimes so you listening some music or or listening some podcasts of you guys.
Oh, get out.
Oh wow.
Well, you have your own podcast, don't you?
Yes. Anime was a mistake.
Anime was a mistake.
Why didn't we call our podcast?
I don't know. Because we're not an anime podcast, Joey. That's why.
Trash taste. What do you mean? Bring to it.
So it's with Media Wishawi and Yann Logal. Oh, sorry, French people.
French people.
We talking about our experience of animation industry, the good, the bad, and how to don't redo our mistakes.
Right.
And yes, and sorry, it's in French.
So any of the French Trash Taste viewers, you can go and listen to that.
Links in the description.
No doubt it'll be filled with information.
There is quite also a English podcast of animation like Dark Studio, Yen Yen by CTBM, of on the Tonali animation. All are in English. I think for people who cannot understand English, for French people, it was good to do French.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have Twitter, right? And
Twitter, Instagram also.
All right, and that'll be all on screen right now, and links in the description.
Definitely.
So please go and follow Ken.
Yeah.
Yes,
Please.
and
Please.
please.
What are you doing already? Go follow.
Come on, look at what he's done. You deserve the clout,
Yeah,
man.
he definitely does. You know who else deserves the clout? Our patrons.
Look at these lovely patrons.
patrons.
Shout out to those guys.
Hey, if you like to support the show, then make sure to go over to our Patreon, patreon.com/trashtaste. Also follow us on Twitter as well.
Yes.
And the subreddit. And if you want to listen
We've
to us
just
on,
hit 100K on our subreddit.
Yeah.
Did we mention that last time?
I don't know. I don't think we did.
I don't think we did.
Yeah, so
Yes.
thanks to all the people on the Reddit. And also make sure to listen to us on Spotify if you don't want to see our faces.
And Trash Taste episodes will have subtitles or captions, so if you do want to listen to them, they'll have them. So
Turn on
just
the
click on
CC
the
button.
CC button if you're interested. Probably should have said that at the start of the episode.
Yeah, right.
Not at the end. But from now on, you know.
Yeah, now you know.
Yeah. And thank you very much for coming
you
on
so much.
again.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
This has
to
been
receive
the
me.
most educational.
Probably the
episode
most
we've had.
educational episode
Yeah.
we've had. It feels nice just not to not have three buffoons arguing
We're
over.
like, yeah, I think this is what happens in the anime. It's nice to get some
Malin,
first
check it
hand-
up.
Yeah.
Malin's a fact checker, right? She knows everything.
I'm happy to, if I could, I don't know if it's teaching you, but a lot
I
of
feel
more.
like I've learned.
Yeah.
I have some information about the backstage. Because,
Yeah.
one episode, it's a lot of work, a lot of people who work on it, and sleepless night and overworks. But for quality and doing, everybody are doing their best.
I mean, the
Yeah.
work speaks for itself, right?
Give
It all
give
comes
love
out.
to the animators. That's the
Yeah.
bottom line.
Basically.
All right.
And anyway, that's been this episode of Trash Taste. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and will see you next time.
Oh, you
Bye.
fucked up that
Bye.
episode.
I
Stumbled
know.
a little bit. All right, bye.
I was like stumbling there.